Hello again and welcome to the Memoir channel. My name is Nikki Smart and today I'm going to be speaking with Mark Steve Porro about his memoir, A Cup of Tea on the Commode. Underneath the title, he says, it's my multitasking adventures of caring for my mom and how I survived to tell the tale. So this book is doing really well for Mark. It has been nominated and won several awards. It's resonating with readers and getting great reviews. So let's go talk to Mark and find out a little bit more. Hello, Mark, and welcome to the Memoir channel.
Hi, thanks very much. It's great to be here on the same side of the earth.
Yes, apparently you're in France while I'm in Portugal. So you're only
Yes, yeah.
you're 1 hour away in time zones.
I know. And yeah, I don't know why we still do this daylight savings. It just throws everybody off. I missed some appointments because of the day change, and it's like 2 weeks
Yeah,
different from the United States, and it's like,
it takes a bit of,
anyway.
I've missed meetings because of it too.
Yeah,
Even when I
it's a
go,
shame.
remember, and then I still don't remember. So yeah.
I trust Google Calendars to get it right, and sometimes.
So your apartment looks very beautiful where you are.
It's very cool. So this village is a small village in southwest France. It's happens to be in the largest wine growing region in the world. So if you're a wine lover, this is a great
Fantastic.
place.
I
Great
see you
place
have
to
all
be.
the wine bottles behind you there on the top shelf.
Those are empty. Those are just on for display. So they say that Moliere was born here. The actual writer came from Paris, and he wasn't yet Moliere. I think it was John Paquin, and he wrote a couple of his, I guess, major plays here. The Misanthrope, and I think Tartuffe may have been written here. And he only stayed here for about 7 years, but they celebrate this man. It's like he built the place, which is lovely because they have their own Walk of Fame, theater fame, and a lot of
Really?
major French actors come and do their hands and footprints and stuff like that. It's very
Lovely.
charming. This apartment was built, they say, in the around 1540, and it's got a lot of charm. And I was realizing when I was writing the acknowledgments in my book that I live on an impasse here, second house from the end on the right. And I grew up on a dead end in New Jersey, second house from the end on the right. And as I was writing certain things about how because I wrote the book here, I needed some time to reflect and hopefully have a little bit of separation from some of the emotion, and so it was a very cool realization. And I said, "Oh my gosh!" So I think my French relatives were definitely guiding me here.
Okay, so let me ask you, how soon after your mother passed away did you decide to write the story?
Well, I through the whole thing, I call it our journey was 3.5 years, and I was a writer. I used to write jokes. I did stand up, and I wrote screenplays in Hollywood, and always I think grew up doing funny stories and funny songs, and always. So I like to record family history. So I took extensive notes, not knowing what form it would take. And I took videos and a lot of photos. And while I was taking care of my mom, a few other friends were going through a similar situation with their parents.
Okay.
And I gave them some tips, and they seemed to get some benefit from it. So I said, I think I have something here, and I think a book is going to be the best way to get that message out and hopefully give some people some guidance and some laughs. There's a lot of tears, but also a lot of laughs.
I think humor is probably needed in situations like this. I think, it helps to soften everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, both of my parents were blessed with pretty good senses of humor, and luckily they passed that on to their 6 kids. So
good.
Yeah.
6 kids, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so now how old was your mom when she actually passed away?
She was 92 and a half.
Okay. Wow. All right. So you weren't in France then, you were in New Jersey.
Well, I was in actually Los Angeles when this whole thing started. So in
Right.
2011, She just kind of shut down in the house that we grew up in New Jersey. And she was very depressed, it seemed, and she was trying to, I think, will herself to die. She was not happy with what was going on. We had some people in the house that she did not get along with. And we didn't know how bad it was until she just shut down. And so the doctor cut off all meds and food, and hospice came in. It was like, and I was living in Los Angeles. So we all the kids came in, and we were on death watch. We had a priest come in and deliver the last rites, and that was it. And so my younger sister and I hung out with hospice because we wanted to care for our mother as much as we could for as long as we could.
Right.
And so we learned all the tips and tricks from hospice, which was great. So we learned how to change the diapers, change the bedding while a helpless patient's in the bed, tend to any, she had some bed sore issues. And so we did all that stuff. And so I did that for a few months and learned what I could. So it's good to learn from the pros.
Right.
And then after about 3 weeks of no food and no talking, her eyes were closed almost all the time. One of the hospice nurses, we found that some of the hospice nurses like to deliver their own remedies, and the assessment was let her go. No food, no, only a little bit of moisture on her lips for comfort, but that's it. And so this one hospice nurse came in, she knew the directive, and she came in and she looked at my mom and just said, "Are you hungry, Mrs. Porro?" And my mother's eyes snapped open for the first time in weeks. And it was like a dinner bell rang. And then this lady accused us of starving our mother to death. And I guess maybe that happens. You know, we were listening to hospice and we trusted their expertise. So we got very angry with her, of course. And then she went in and called her supervisor. And the supervisor said, "Go, you broke the rules, get out." And then I was thinking, oh my gosh, could they have been wrong? And my mother really does need some food. So I went in and said, "Mom, are you hungry?" And she, again, first words in weeks, "What do you got?" And I said, "Well, anything you want." And at this point, this thing started in early February. Now it's in March. And she says, "How about some pumpkin pie?" And pumpkin pie season is, Thanksgiving time in November. So I said, all right. And my brother, who lived locally, was in the living room. So he took on the challenge to go find some pumpkin pies. And by some small miracle, he found two. And she started eating those and snapped out of it, and then moved on to sherbet, and then moved on to sugary oatmeal. But she was back. We said, this is not the best medicine, but
Wow.
and she may be riding the most continuous sugar high, but she was back and she was sharp and she seemed happy. So,
And then she survived for quite a while after that.
yeah. So, hospice stayed on for 6 months. And so I stayed on for a couple of months. Then I went back to LA and then came back in September and took care of her again. And while I was there, that's when I asked her, because things were right back to where they were before, because we had people caring for her, supposedly.
Right.
And it was a bit of an issue, and they were still present. And so I asked her if she wanted me to come back and take care of her full time. And she said yes. And so part of that is in the chapter that I'll read.
Right. Okay.
And that was it, because I realized that she really needed some love and she wanted her kids around, and she and I had a really good relationship. And so she trusted me, and my siblings trusted me, and they let me so in December of that year, I moved back and took over.
And was this in the same house that you grew up in then?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So
it's not unusual, I guess, nowadays for the kids to move back with mom, but
well, that's true, actually. Yeah.
A little weird in your mid-50s.
But then after it all happened and now she's gone, then you're writing, but then you go to France and you actually write the book while you're in France.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my mom passed, it'll be 10 years this August. So I moved to France in 2016, and I kept the notes and everything, but I'm kind of a sap, so an emotional sap. So I could not write or seriously sit down to write. And also, when I decided to write a book, I knew the genre was going to be memoir. And that was something new to me. Screenplays and jokes and things like
Right.
that were fine. But so I started studying the craft and the genre. And Marion Roach Smith is a very good memoir teacher. So I got her book and then I started studying with her. And she was actually my first editor once I got an early draft out. And so, yeah, because I wanted it to be good. So I'd say the most difficult thing for me was the structure of it, because originally it was chronological, which could be kind of boring. You know, it's and then I threw in some backstory to help support the present day. So I have the present day in chronological order, and then backstory to help support why these things happened or what supported those. And then I left myself out of it as much as I could. And then I think it was Marion who told me, she said, you know, we need to know that you're a reliable narrator. So we need more of Mark in this. Who's telling this story? And why do we have to trust him? And why do we want to go on this journey with him?
And how is it impacting you as well? Because I imagine
So it's funny because I've had some people read it who know me, and they go, boy, there's a lot of you in this. And I said, I tried not to put it in there, but it's
Okay. And then how long did it take you to complete the book?
Probably a couple years where I felt it was I mean, hundreds of drafts, I'm sure.
Yeah, it takes a few, I think a few years is about right. It's about average. Right?
And then after Marion's notes, I did another draft or so, and then I started going after agents and publishers. And it was interesting. So a lot of these, I read biographies, I do my research, and they say, oh, we take every manuscript very seriously. We take careful consideration, and I'm getting a 30-second no, from my emails. And so for some reason, and so I'm getting rejected left and right, but I'm in France. And so for some reason, this one publisher, who is now my publisher, also rejected me very quickly. So I usually just say, thank you for your consideration. This one I said, I need to ask you a question. And I said, does my living in France have anything to do with it? And she said, yes. Foreign authors do not understand American marketing. And I said, I'm from Jersey. I know how to market. And she says, send me the manuscript.
Wow, that's amazing. So a lot of the people were just rejecting you outright just because you were in the wrong country.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's frustrating.
So and they've been fabulous. They're a small publisher, but they I just loved working with them.
And where are they based then?
Pardon me?
Where are they based then?
I think in North Carolina.
Okay. Sorry.
They're Right Life Publishing, and they're I think their nonfiction wing is a what do they call it? Like a subchapter of boutique quality books, or an imprint of those, I guess.
And then, I mean, I see that you've done a lot of marketing now. Is that you doing it, or are they helping you? Because
they do some, but I think I'm teaching them a lesson or two, because I go crazy, and I just got today finally my 100th review on Amazon. I kept pushing for the triple digits. So
yes, very good.
Yeah, I've produced all these small teaser videos, probably over 150 of those. And stuff goes out. And next week, we're having a big sale for the ebook starting on May 8th in celebration of Mother's Day.
Good idea. Good idea.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, you reminded me that you did some music for it too, right?
Yeah, I wrote, I play a little. I usually have my guitars in the background, but
right.
I dabble in the guitar. So I wrote the music, and it's kind of a fun song, but after hearing it for 3 years, I'm kind of like, I'm ready to move on.
But so all your videos that you have made that people can go and watch, those all have your it's acoustic guitar you're playing, and like a nylon string guitar.
Well, actually, I had my because at the time now I have a nice professional setup with the microphone. At the time I didn't, so my nephew is also a musician back in Michigan, so I asked him to do it in his studio.
Okay.
So I sent the song to him, and he played it. So
very
it's
good.
Owen playing the guitar.
Well done, Owen.
Thank you.
And then, I mean, I know you've also won some awards, and recently you won the Firebrand Award, is that right?
That's Firebird. Some of
Firebird, I'm
these,
sorry.
the book Excellence was the first one. I think that has you look at, I guess the awards, you want exposure. I don't really care about the awards that much, but if
Right.
it gets more exposure for my story, I think that's lovely. So you
Yes.
look at, again, you research all the ones that you're able to do as an independent publisher, or a small press published book. And yeah, so we're 2 for 2 so far, and there's a bunch of others that we're up for. So
No,
the book is good. I had good
yeah,
editors, and
yeah,
it's certainly a good story, and it's timely, and I think also timeless, because we're all either have or going to face this at some point,
absolutely.
because we're all living longer, and that's causing problems.
And I think I read somewhere that there's not very many memoirs about caregiving.
I don't
So
this I don't know. I know
yeah.
there's a few that I researched while writing, and then
Hmm.
also um, a lot of interesting memoirs about I guess death and stuff. Joan
Hmm.
Didion has a very interesting one, The Year of Magical Thinking, and
Hmm.
I think it's Amy Bloom has the one about love, where her husband, I think, had Alzheimer's,
Right,
and they went to Switzerland and did the exit.
right.
And so that whole trip was very interesting, and a lovely thing, but boy, what a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, very difficult. Do you think that watching your mother and taking care of her and being so close to her in her last moments will help you when you get to that point?
I don't know. I have, since I have no children, I have a girlfriend. I'm not sure if she's going to be willing to do things depending on, but I did while I was, before I came here to France, I was living in Michigan with my sister and her family. So
Hmm.
my two nephews, the one that plays
Oh, and yes.
the guitar, I did sign them up. I didn't put it in actual writing, but I said, when your Uncle Mark needs some help, you're going to be taking care of me. And
Yeah,
oh yeah, we'll do that. So one
yeah,
actually probably would.
yeah,
He's a really good kid. So
yeah.
we'll see. Or I can
Well,
guilt trip him. I learned guilt tripping from mom, so I can certainly guilt trip him into it. Yeah,
um,
I'm not sure. So it's
yeah.
I think what's great. But before I was, I think 2 years before I was published, right at the beginning of COVID, actually, there was a
Hmm.
group here of retirees, and I did a presentation and then a reading of some of the early drafts.
Hmm.
And one of the ladies stood up and said, "When is this book coming out? Because I want my kids to read it as an inspiration." I said, "Wow,
Right.
that's a whole nother market I never thought
You
about."
know what? She's absolutely right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
very
And
good.
so there, it's funny because I have some friends, and they're probably mostly the guys who are afraid to read this book. They're good friends of mine, and they will not touch it. I think for whatever reason,
Well,
whether
I'm
they,
sure for some people it is scary because it's
yeah,
facing something you absolutely don't want to face, right?
right,
Yeah.
yeah. I can understand. Yeah.
But I mean, as far as I can see, because I read lots of your reviews and that, it seems to really resonate with people, and they all say it's told with such love and such humor. So well done. Sounds like you've
Yeah.
yeah
Yeah,
done a
it's really
really
nice. And
great
another
job.
thing I never really thought about. So the village I grew up in was 25,000. This village is, 8,300. Um, it has opened up communication with all these people I haven't been in touch with for over 50
Ah,
years.
oh, that's
And
lovely
they
too.
are, I would have to say half of that village is on Facebook, because every day I get, oh, friend suggestions from Ridgewood, from Ridgewood, from Ridgewood.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're sharing lovely stories. And one of the girls was a backdoor neighbor of mine, and her daughter was living in Paris at the time. So she says she's coming to France. And I said, well, if you come down south, come stay here. And again, I haven't seen her in over 50
Yeah.
years. And we're chatting about the old days and things like that. And then there's a guy in my book. It's not a good guy. I have
Oh,
just mentioned him a couple of times. She said he married her sister.
oh,
And oh my gosh, talking about small world. And I was going to leave him out of the book because I didn't want to, have any problems,
right.
legal problems. But she said he's dead now, and
Okay, so
good riddance. And I said he's going back in the book.
yeah. Okay. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so
So wait, she's coming to visit soon. that what you're saying? Or she has been
No,
already?
she came a
She
couple of
came.
years ago
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Okay.
hung out, and we just started talking
That's
because she's
fantastic.
also wrote a book, and so we're sharing stories. And she said, "Oh my gosh, he was my brother-in-law." It was like,
Wow.
oh my,
Wow.
it's funny.
That's
So,
brilliant.
and then other people, my dad was a baseball coach, and I have guys saying, "Oh your father was my coach," and said lovely things. So that it's really nice because they're saying a lot of lovely things about my folks because I knew
Yeah.
they were good, fun people, and I knew my friends loved hanging out at my house
Right.
because my parents were fun.
And I mean, and
So
you were in that same area for so long and they lived there their whole lives. So I imagine
yeah,
they
yeah,
have
yeah,
built up quite a huge community. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
would
So
you maybe read us a section of your book
all right,
if
I
you had
edited one
something?
chapter. I'll see if I can get through this. I started editing today, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm going to probably start crying, but I'll try not
Oh,
to. I'll see what I can do here. So I'm going to have it on the screen here. So it's large, so
okay.
I can see.
Okay. I'm
Okay,
going
so
to put you.
this one is called "Why Are You Doing This?" And this is a chapter 47 in the book. So later in the book, I never believed in angels, but for some reason they believed in me, and I'm truly thankful for it. They kept watch over me during the many crazy, death-defying stunts I indulged in as a kid. I hopped on freight and passenger trains, and only after learning the hard way made sure to hit the ground running when hopping off. Still, chances were momentum slammed me ass first onto the sidewalk. Not cracking my skull was a good day. Crawled through dark, dank sewer pipes, never knowing where or if they ended, or what might be crawling or flowing my way. For reasons I'll never understand, my friends and I, fully clothed and in sneakers, would jump into the roaring rapids of the Hohokus River after a hard rain. We floated over waterfalls, around boulders, dodging logs and debris for what seemed like miles. The only escape before reaching the Atlantic Ocean was to grab a hold of pricker bushes spilling over the riverbanks and pull your soggy, beaten, and now bloody self to safety. We called it body surfing. Some people, no doubt, would call it something else. If mom or dad caught wind of any of these escapades, they surely would have done what trains, sewers, or that raging river could never do: put me out of their misery. How my parents survived their six-pack of kids confounds me to this day. Seeing what they went through while only knowing a fraction of what we did played a big part in me not wanting or having children. And there I was, some 30 years later, embracing parenthood. Only this child was my 90-year-old mother. I jumped in with gusto and happily took on all the first-time parent duties. And I lost sleep, lots and lots of sleep. The physical tasks, though time-consuming, were manageable, and with practice became routine. They were nothing compared to the emotional roller coaster I found myself on. I didn't expect it, didn't want it, tried to ignore it, but it crept on me as I realized this child would sleep more hours, not fewer. Her vocabulary would not increase, but diminish to barely a word. She would never walk again on her own, never outgrow her dependency. She would only continue to decline. And, most difficult, I had to accept the fact that I would not have her for much longer. My mother's life was in my hands, and I needed her to understand that. Do you trust me? I asked. Yes, she whispered. Do you understand I will do everything in my power to keep you healthy and safe? She smiled and nodded. That means I'm in charge, and that means you must listen and obey me. Her mood shifted in an instant. She looked me dead in the eye and puckered up her lips. I wasn't sure if this was a sign of surrender or one wishing me luck. I kissed her and hoped for the best. After a particularly stressful day for the both of us, she shot me a curious look and said, "Why are you doing this?" I paused and took a deep breath. Because it's an honor for a son to take care of his business. This is 10 years later, but even more. Because it's an honor for a son to take care of his mother, I answered with all sincerity. Taken aback, she said, "It is?" Her surprise stung me on many levels. I felt the need to reassure her. Of course, how long did you take care of me? She was unconvinced, so I continued. Who forgave me when I shelled all those lobster tails and turned your lovely New Year's presentation into a pile of white meat? And who forgave me when her expensive but noisy spoked hubcaps flew off her car when I tried to silence them with grease? And who didn't tell Dad I was suspended for 2 days in the 7th grade for slamming the vice principal's door? And with that, she smiled. But her question got me thinking, why did I take this on? Why did I give up my carefree bachelor life to move back into my childhood home? Yes, I was in a position to help. I had no children, no pets, no current relationship tying me to Los Angeles, at least none that I knew of. My acting career had stalled long ago, and after devoting 15 years of blood, sweat, and plenty of tears to my organic popcorn business, Grandpa Poe's Originals barely had a kernel of life left in it. Perhaps the pain of overhearing my brother Michael channeling Dad's tirades about money played a role. Mom's careless spending continued to be an issue as long as telemarketers had access to her and she had access to a credit card. Maybe I did it for selfish reasons. I wanted more than the 8 days I got with my dad. And maybe I needed a win. I needed to accomplish something meaningful, which at that point in my life, I felt I hadn't. I was good at many things, but never stuck with one long enough to excel above all others. I got bored and moved on. That was my MO. When I met my niece's father-in-law at her wedding in Bermuda, he asked what I did for work. I started 5 nonprofit businesses, I said. He looked at me like I was Jesus. None were intended to be, I added quickly, and we shared a good laugh and returned to our dark and stormies. Taking this on was perhaps the biggest challenge of my life. Could be my savings grace. After all, it was my mom. She never once gave up on me. So I committed myself not only to her, but to my 5 siblings. They all put their trust in me, and no matter how difficult physically, mentally, or emotionally this journey became, I was determined not to let any of them down. This time there would be no moving on until she decided to move on. But during those difficult times, I often asked myself the same question: why are you doing this? Then I'd see her smile, or catch one of her witty comebacks, or I'd melt when she puckered up for a kiss, and I had my answer. So maybe these angels who saved me all those times had a plan all along. Do I believe in them now? I think I do.
Oh, beautiful.
Well, oh boy, you can imagine what it was like to record the audiobook.
Well, of course, it's a deep love that you have. I mean, it was your mother. It's the core relationship. But it's,
Yeah, yeah.
first of all, I'm amazed you survived because it sounds incredibly dangerous what you were doing as a kid. Uh,
Oh yeah, and my brothers
oof.
probably were equally as crazy. So it's yeah,
It's amazing when
one
you're
of
a
those
kid.
kids from high school actually said, "Hey, was that me in the river with you?" And I said, "I don't think it was you, but yeah, if you survived, fantastic."
Yeah. Um, no, I mean it's beautiful, and I think that's why your book is resonating with so many people because it's love. It's just love, isn't it?
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, and I
It's
grew up in
just
people say, "Oh, what a sacrifice." No, I grew up in a really nurturing, loving family, and it was no big deal the decision was no big deal.
mhm,
Working out the logistics, took some
right.
uh, time and stuff. But yeah, mom and dad were great, and my siblings are great, and so it was like
Wow.
honor thy mother and father. So it's it's
Well, I think you're very lucky because I feel like stories that of families that actually all like each other and love each other and live well together is, it's quite rare.
I guess it is. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
how I have a one line in the book about uh, we all grew up in Jersey, and they say Jersey people are pretty opinionated and stuff and brash, and so I say, yeah, the fewer Porros in a room making a decision is probably best because friction will ensue because we all know better. We all
Yeah.
know, we're the one who's right and stuff like that. So
Right.
it's probably true. So as long
Yeah.
as we don't have a task to deal with, we get along pretty well.
So are your siblings spread out all over, or are they mostly in New Jersey? Do you have anyone near you in
The
France?
two brothers are in New Jersey. One brother actually lives in the same town that we grew up in. Another brother's probably about 15 minutes away. One sister now lives in Pittsburgh. She was in Albania teaching at an
Mm,
international school for many years. And the other sister she goes back and forth between upstate New York and North Carolina. And the other sister, my youngest sister, is in Michigan.
okay. So you're the only one in France.
I'm the only one in France. At one point, we had two in Europe. My youngest sister from Michigan just left here like 2 weeks ago. So that was nice.
Okay.
She was visiting.
Yeah.
So 3 of them have been here and one
Yeah.
cousin. it's an attractive place where you say, hey, come visit me in the south of
Yeah,
France. It's a lot
no,
better than come to
absolutely. I
Jersey.
want to come visit you. Your place looks great.
It's great. No, come. We have a extra guest room, and it's yeah, it's a cool village.
And so, okay, what's next for you now that you've finished this one and it's out and it's winning awards and getting reviewed? Now, what's your
Well,
next?
the marketing is still pretty heavy,
Yeah.
but I have it's so while I was editing this book, there were I think the last draft I probably took out 4,000 words,
Hmm.
and some of those just seem like those chapters are better suited for another book, and so the next
Okay.
book's going to focus more on my dad, and so I have lots of notes. I only had 8 days with my dad, but we had a really good history, and I have lots of notes about not only the 8 days, but our life. And in
Hmm.
1995, he was 80, and I took him to Italy, where the little village where his father came from 100 years earlier,
Mm.
and shot a documentary of that. And so that's another way I like to record family history. So the two of us went there, and we spent 16 days, and he was not doing well. He had a heart disease, and he passed 2 years later. So I didn't know what shape he was in, but he was
Hmm.
willing to come on this trip. And my brothers never told me. They said, we didn't expect him to come back. And I'm like, really? You didn't want to tell me this stuff? Because, I was in LA, I come pick him up, and we're off to Italy. And
And he was 80,
he was
how,
80,
80 at this
and
point.
yeah, and
Yeah, good for him.
near death, but he was a trooper. I mean, you probably couldn't tell on the video, or maybe I cut some stuff.
Hmm.
But when we're in Rome, and we're approaching a curb, and he had to stop and think about it
Hmm.
before trying to lift his foot to
To get up.
just it
Yeah,
was, and that's when it hit me, and I said, oh man.
yeah,
And so I said, "Do you want any help?" And he kept saying, "Yeah, I'm not an invalid. I'm not an invalid." The
yeah,
poor
yeah,
guy, but he was a trooper. So
yeah.
it was good. And also he said it was one of the highlights of his life,
Oh,
that
good.
trip, because I have
Fantastic.
his father's house is still there, and I have a photograph of him knocking on his father's door, which is very cool.
That is
So
cool.
it was a special trip. So the next book will focus on that. And also, he invented this popcorn snack that was a national brand for a while.
Hmm.
That my brother and I actually started the company to honor him. He was not. I took over. It was like a family snack, and he had some people interested in the early '70s, but he wasn't happy with the deal, so it remained a family secret. And then I was working on it, and then he passed before we actually got into the stores, but he knew what I was doing and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
it was very cool. So the Italy trip, other stories of me and my dad, and this popcorn snack will all come together in this
Right,
book
right.
instead of
Okay,
three separate books. So that'll be
okay.
fun.
Good, 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 good. Now, what is one of your favorite memoirs?
Well, I don't know if it's a memoir. Are you familiar with Anthony Bourdain's
I mean,
book?
I don't know it, but
I
I'm sure it's fabulous
just a sec.
because he was pretty fabulous. Oh,
Oh my God. Oh,
he's
I'm
left
sorry.
me.
Now I remember. What a Kitchen Confidential.
Oh, that's right. Of course.
And
Yes.
what I love about him is, and I have the annotated version, which is great, because he goes in, he says, that guy wasn't so bad. Or, this guy was right, and he had a better recipe for this, this particular meal. But again, it's like he writes like he talks.
Hmm.
And I like that. And I
Right.
think what people say about my book is like they say it's like sitting at the table with a cup of coffee having a chat.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
so
I agree. When you find your voice and it comes across well, then you've got it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's another writer I really like. His name is Rick Bragg, and he's from
Rick
down
Bragg.
south Alabama, a little town in Alabama, and he made his way to the New York Times and won a Pulitzer. And his first book was all about the shouting, and it's mostly about his mom, but
Hmm.
the shouting line came from his dad. His dad was not a good man. And so he was very protective of his mother, and his mother put up with a lot of stuff. And he writes, I'm somewhat jealous. I mean, it's poetry. This guy from way down, I mean, he's just gorgeous. And so he's written a few other books since then, but that All Over But the Shouting is lovely.
Okay, I'll look that one up.
Yeah,
I
he's
like
very
the
good. And
title
actually,
too.
my memoir teacher said, you remind me of him. This is someone you should read. So,
Oh, what a
uh,
nice compliment for you. That's
yeah.
lovely.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know, the level, but it did ring a bell. She said, study this guy. So I have.
All right.
So
So, and then can people find out where your book is? You have a website, right? And it's that,
yes, if
oh,
they Google A Cup of Tea on the
on the
Commode,
Commode.
it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's on Amazon, it's in 4 versions there. So we have the paperback, large print paperback, ebook, and now the audiobook
Oh, very good.
also. But
How long did the audiobook take you to do?
I don't even want to venture a guess.
Okay.
It was so I set up a studio here, and had to do it late at night when it was quiet. And sometimes I would start, and these walls here are really thick, but you can hear everything upstairs. There's nothing
Oh,
between
okay.
stones.
Yeah.
And so the neighbor upstairs would start a laundry, and that blew that night. And then there were other times where, they may have been playing a little long, watching the TV or thumping
Right.
upstairs. And so
Right.
so sometimes I would be recording until like 3, 4 in the morning. And then I would edit during the day with headphones on, and I would hear, so it was terrible. So,
Okay.
and
So it
then
took a
also
while.
trying to read without crying is another story. And then I'm an actor too. So sometimes you listen, you go, that it could be so
Yeah.
much better. So
Yeah.
I got to a point where I just said, this is fine.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Well,
And
it is my pleasure. As
and
I'd like to say, yeah, I get to share my story, I keep my mom in the present, which is lovely. So it's a lovely gift for me. And
yes. Okay. Well,
so
lovely, lovely. Well, thank you so much.
thank you, Nikki.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye bye.